So how reliable are chain assists? So chain assists are something people like to spam for certain team comps. They've become kind of a meme, and to some degree they're effective. I think there's better things that are more reliable, that are easier to set up. But let's actually go over the likelihood of chain assists popping off. So chain assists deal 10% of the enemy's max health as damage, and they have an 80% chance to hit. So a single chain assist, you don't really have to do anything. You just know that it has a 4 out of 5 chance to hit. So more likely than not, it will hit, but there's still a 1 in 5 chance it does not. However, when you start stacking chain assists or using abilities like Brave Assist, you now have to calculate the probability of multiple events occurring at 80%. And funny enough, when you do that, it actually starts to look less and less consistent the more chain assists you add. So the probability of a single chain assist hitting, and if you have two 80% chances, is much higher. So if we do at least one of these events occurs, so if you want a single chain assist to occur, you have a 96% chance of that if you have two chain assists. However, if you want both of them to occur, and you're calculating your damage based on both of them occurring, you have a 64% chance for two chain assists to hit. Now, things get even more interesting when you add more events. So adding more events means you're adding more chain assists. So the probability that 3 chain assists all hit is actually only 50%. So even though in your brain you're probably thinking, oh, this, I have 380% chances, these are probably all going to hit. In reality, all of them hitting is actually quite low. Like this is now, like the odds get lower and lower the more chain assists you add. So in this case, the probability of 3 hitting is 50-50. And that's interesting to know, because one thing I noticed when I used Brave Assist and all these chain assist spam is that a lot of them would miss. And I was like, well, why is that? They're 80%. Shouldn't these be hitting? And the brutal reality is the more you add, the less consistent it becomes. So like if you look at the damage and it looks lethal. So this is why I think chain assists in some ways are like A tier, like the chain assist, Brave Assist abilities, like in general. I think it's like nice to have the chip damage, but I don't think it's the best thing to rely on because it's way less consistent. It's actually less consistent than Sandstorm build, funny enough, because Sandstorm build just needs to occur once. And if you have 2 to 4 events occurring for Sandstorm, your probability spikes up even at like 30% trigger rate. But if you want all of it to happen, it's quite low. Now, if you go to 4 chain assist, this is where things get interesting. So you can actually see visually what it's like, how it's calculating this. It's actually 40% for 4 chain assists to all land. Now, obviously, if you're just looking at one of these, it's basically guaranteed that one of them will hit. But if you want to rely on all of them hitting, it's below 50%. And then, of course, if you go up to 5, it's much lower. It's like almost like a Hail Mary at that point. So there's definitely pros and cons of Brave Assist and Chain Assist spam. But it's definitely the case that they're not nearly as consistent as people realize. And I think it's a little misleading to assert that it's like this really super amazing, reliable thing. Now, it is true that it ignores armor, like because it just takes 10% of their max HP. But arguably, the best units in the game, or even just good units, can still deal damage. So if you're concerned with hitting through armor, your units probably are just weak or not optimized correctly. And also for the final boss, here are your odds. The final boss does this to chain assist. That's pretty bad, man. So like the final boss makes all chain assists 30% chance to hit instead of 80. So in order, look at the odds of all of these hitting. All right, so let's go on the odds of at least one. Okay, so at least at 30%, it's still at least one of them will hit. But if we want to do, let's say for example, let's just set this back to 2. And then both occurring, let's put it at 30%. There we go. So this is what you're looking at with the boss. So this is a single Brave Assist against the final boss. It has a 9% chance of both hitting, and at least one of them occurring has a 51% chance. So this isn't bad, but both occurring against the final boss, very unlikely. And the reason why I mention this is the final boss, if you're not prepared for it, or if you don't know what to do or how it works, and you're banking on your chain assist to pop off, you're going to be in for a huge surprise. You're going to have a rude awakening of sorts, where your chain assist spam is now terrible, and you're going to need a different tactic to beat the boss. Now, if you know what you're doing and you know how to beat the boss and you have that factored into your chain assist spam, you'll be fine. But this definitely is a huge downside of chain assist spam. Aside from the SP investment to unlock dual assist plus, which is 2K, so you can't run other things like canter or other abilities because 2K is around the average SP a unit makes on maddening when invested in full time, like around 2 to 3K SP. But that being said, they're not as consistent or reliable as you probably think. And even just at 80%, this is your odds of both hitting. Because I noticed frequently that when I would have a Brave assist, usually just one would hit. And I was like, well, why is that? Because like 80%, you think 80% is high, but 80% hitting twice in a row is actually pretty unlikely. So this kind of changes the way I view the game. Like even if you go down to like 70, so like let's say 2 units have a 70% chance to hit something or to double, your odds are slightly below a coin flip for 270s hitting. So this should influence you in some way, because then you now know this, right? So you now know that the odds really aren't in your favor for 270s to hit, for example. But even 80s, it's just a little bit above a coin flip. So it's almost 50-50 that these both hit. Now, if you just keep spamming this, if you do this twice, so in this case, it would be something like this. If you do it twice, I think those are your odds of it happening, like of both hitting, because it'll happen at least once. So that's not bad. But obviously, if you do this, like these are the odds, of a 4x chain assist popping off. And then we can check 3, and you can check 5. So it's pretty crazy. And this is with the final boss. If you're curious where this is, Calc Tool. I think it's like calctool.net or something, so you can check out different probabilities. This is good for calculating crits. So like let's say you have a crit build. Let's say your unit's crit rate is 50%. Let's say you're using a Brave weapon. You really are only interested in the crit happening once. You don't need it to happen every time. So in this case, you're basically guaranteed a crit, pretty close to being it. And then let's say you double. And so you double 50-50. So these are your odds of landing a crit in this case. So this could be useful for calculating hits, calculating crits, calculating chain assist consistency, calculating sandstorm triggers, Ignis triggers, Luna triggers. It's really useful. So let's say like you're on Alchrist, he has 30 dex, and yeah, he has basically a 51% chance for Luna to trigger. Now the reason why that's good is that's just every time he attacks, he just passively has this. But if you put him on like a Brave weapon, so if he's on a Brave weapon and he's at 30% or 30 dex, he has a 75% chance for Luna to trigger at least once. So you can see how you can take low percentages, and when you're just aiming for a single hit, your odds improve. And when you take high percentages and you're aiming for all of it, your odds decrease. So there's definitely like a push and pull to the amount of hits and the hit rates and the probability. And also the opposite is true. There's an increase in probability the more times it happens when you're just looking for a single instance. So it's like flipping a coin, right? Like if you flip a coin 10 times in a row, you'll generally get, 5 heads and 5 tails. And the same is true here. So the more coin flips, the more chances you see heads or tails specifically. So if you flip a coin 4 times and you're just looking for one of these events to occur, you're basically guaranteeing yourself. Actually, let's do this. I think you have to check for one specifically. I don't think I can check this easily, just like A not occurring. Yeah, so if we do like something like this. And then just go to, this would just be 50-50. So, all right, you get it though. You understand. Okay, so that's it for this one. I just want to talk about chain assists, consistency, triggering abilities, percentages. This is kind of like the sequel to my initial Sandstorm math video. Now, is chain assist still good? I think so. I still think it's relevant, it's viable, it's strong. I just don't think it's S tier, just because of math and also anecdotes. I've noticed it missing more often than it should. So like Brave Assist seems really good on paper, but it's not nearly as consistent as you think. 80% is misleading as you add more 80% into the equation. Now, if there were 90%, now we're talking. But it's not, it's 80. So if it was 90%, I'd be like, yeah, this is S tier. But because it's 80%, it's not nearly as consistent as you think. And I've personally observed it missing a ton. And I was always like, well, why is this missing? 80% is like pretty surefire, right? 80% actually isn't. Like, I think the way to view percentages in Fire Emblem is 100% is ideal. 90 to 99 is almost guaranteed. 70 or 80 to 90 is pretty good odds. 80 to 90. And then 70 to 80 is like reasonably likely. And then 60 to 70 is somewhat likely, and then 50 is coin flip, and then anything below that is bad. Like, that's the way I view things, especially now after seeing this. And when doubling, 80% doubling, not that reliable. However, 85% doubling, a little bit better. And then like 89, much better. So as you hit 90, your doubling becomes way more consistent. But as you approach 80 and lower, your doubling becomes way less consistent. And this is, in this case, this is what a chain assist calculates out to be. And you can see it visually, which is cool. So I really like this website. But yeah, definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this or found this useful. I think it's useful to visualize what's actually happening. So like if we go to like 5 chain assists, look at how many like things need to happen. And look at how consistent it is. It's still reasonably consistent in this case. So like it's still 30%, which is decent. So there's still a good chance that it all pops off, but it's basically like if you're running a crit build and has a 30% chance to crit at this point, because that's kind of similar to what a crit build does. It gives you scaled damage based on 30% to like, 50% crit rate. On balanced games, on some Fire Emblems, like including this one, you can get your crit rates up to like 80 to 100%. So definitely probably less reliable than a crit build, actually, now that I think about it. So maybe crit builds are actually better than chain assist spam, because why would you use chain assist spam when if I'm just trying to kill an enemy and all I care about is landing a big hit, I would rather go after a Sandstorm, I'd rather go after a Luna, I'd rather go after a crit, because if I can get my crit rate or my Sandstorm rate up to reasonable levels, and then I can double or quad, that's more reliable than all of these individual hits occurring. You also have to consider that this is like a gateway to damage. Each one of these adds up, but a lot of these can fail. Like any set of 2 of these has a 64% chance of both hitting, and then any set of 3, it was like 50. Or I'm sorry, there we go. Or no. My bad. Yeah, hold on. This 5 one was misleading. It's not 32%. Wait, is it? Hold on. Oh, these are 50. Okay, my bad. Yeah, I didn't realize it was updating. Okay, yeah, so that's right. So this is 40% for all these. It changed it to 50. That's why it was so low. Yeah, so it's still reasonable, but you can see visually what it's looking at in this overlap, like this crazy Venn diagram. So now that you can see that, maybe this changes some people's opinion on how good chain assist is. But also consider that there are builds that can just one-round enemies and don't need like chain assists at all, including worms and stuff like that. So, and bosses. So, like I just don't think it's S tier. If it were like 90%, I would say it's S tier. But because it's 80, like the difference is huge. Like if we bump all these up to 90, that's way more reliable. If this is 5 hits all hitting, that's over a coin flip. That's decent for 5 hits hitting. And then if we reduce this to like 3 and put it at 90, that's pretty reasonable. And then of course, that is pretty good. But yeah, 80% is misleading. Like it seems like it's better than it is. But yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Feel free to mess around with these calculators yourself. You can always just Google the probability calculator and usually find something like this. There's a bunch of different websites that have it. Basically, the thing you want to look for is at least one of the events occurring or both occurring generally. And then this equation here is just the probability of this and this. And then there's different things. You see this, how the symbol changes. So this is both occurring. This is one occurring. So the symbol changes based on what's happening, right? It's like based on what calculation is being done. So that's all that is. All right, peace.